We begin today with the prospects for a lasting peace in Gaza. It's almost 4 weeks since the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas went into effect. A ceasefire that has largely been holding, but for the people of Gaza, the path beyond the destruction remains unclear. Large parts of the territory lie in ruins, and hundreds of thousands of people are living in makeshift shelters. The first phase of the ceasefire has seen the return of hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners and detainees. Much of the fighting has been halted and aid deliveries have increased, but the slow return of hostage bodies has caused tensions, and tricky questions around Gaza's future governance and security have yet to be resolved. And to discuss a way forward, I'm joined now by two men who've been working together for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. I'm pleased to welcome former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert and Nasser Kidwa, former Palestinian Minister of Foreign Affairs. It's great to have you here in the studio today. Thank you so much for making the time. Let's start with you, Mr. Olmert. It is almost a month since the ceasefire in Gaza came into effect. Where do you see the efforts for lasting peace right now? Where does this process stand?
It hasn't started yet. We are talking about trying to stabilize the ceasefire, which is not simple. There are temptations from both sides to try and somehow keep a certain advantage so that the ceasefire will not be seen as not achieving the objectives. The Israeli side wants to create the impression that Hamas is completely destroyed, totally destroyed, as was the ambition of the Prime Minister. Hamas, from its side, doesn't want to be entirely disarmed, and as the plan calls for. So I think that there are still vibrations coming from both sides, and at the present time, I think the effort is made to stabilize the ceasefire and to make it more permanent, and to start and build up an international security force that will then take care of the security needs in Gaza. Hopefully it will be successful. But there are no more talks yet about peace. This is much grander.
You mentioned the International Security Force, and that would be overseen by what is called the Board of Peace, with a yet-to-be-determined makeup. We know about Donald Trump. We know about Tony Blair. What role do you, Mr. Al-Kidwa, see the Palestinian Authority and Fatah play in that?
Listen, first, let's agree that the plan of Mr. Trump did some good things, caused some good results. I mean, more or less, we have now the release of all hostages. We have the release of many Palestinian prisoners. We have almost a ceasefire in place, with the exception of some Israeli attacks. So there was some improvement in the general situation. Now, of course, we are left with the difficult part. That is the day after, and what happens in Gaza Strip generally, including the questions you raised. What about the role of the Palestinian Authority? And, by the way, I'm not sure that even the points you mentioned are very clear. So we know that there will be a board of peace headed by President Trump. We don't know exactly what is the mandate of this board.
Sure.
Some people speak of an additional layer composed of something called executive committee. And then some others speak of a Palestinian body with broader authority, if you wish. I'm not sure that Mr. Tony Blair will head the middle level if there is agreement on that level, and probably he will join the Board of Peace, and maybe they will bring someone else. So it's still a confusing situation. Mm-hmm. We still have different views on different things, including the role of the Palestinian Authority, because there are some parties, including the authority itself, of course, that insist that role must be clear, and that if it is not clear, then we are dividing the Palestinian territory, and that we are causing lots of problems, including maybe allowing Hamas to continue in its place. I wouldn't go that far, but I honestly want to see some kind of role. By the way, in our joint proposal that we proposed 15 months ago, we says exactly that we need to establish a new Palestinian body organically linked to the Palestinian Authority. And I think this remains the key words. It's not going to be a minister, but it should be organically linked to the Palestinian Authority through some way that we need to discuss and we need to agree upon that would allow the Palestinian Authority to be engaged and to be, in charge, at least theoretically, through this formula.
We'll get to the peace plan that you have put on the table in a short while. Now that you talk about a Palestinian body organically linked to the Palestinian Authority, I'd like to know from you, do you see yourself playing a role in that?
Listen, I repeatedly said to some of your colleagues that any Palestinians who really hopes to go to Gaza must be really crazy. It's
but you're
very
Gazan yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And on the other hand, this is our country. And we can't escape our responsibility. And if needed, of course, I'll be available. So probably you'll take this as yes, but it's yes, but. It's not only yes.
All right.
An opinion about it. Everyone who is crazy enough in the middle of a war between Israel and Palestine to sign a joint agreement and a joint statement with the former Prime Minister of Israel is a courageous guy. And if he's a courageous guy, then perhaps the position of governor in Gaza requires courage. So maybe this is something that can give you a direction.
You don't look like you would oppose that suggestion.
Given the special relationship that exists, I don't take this as a very exceptional thing because, we are friends. And that is, it goes without saying that Ehud Olmert would say something like this. And I would say also reciprocate and say nice things about him as well.
Mr. Olmert, the Israeli government, of course, opposes any kind of involvement by the Palestinian Authority in the future governance of Gaza. Is there any other Palestinian body or representative of the Palestinian cause that would be acceptable to the current Israeli government?
One of the main criticism against the Israeli government throughout these last 2 years was that it had no vision about the day after. And that includes everything. There was no vision of how you end the war. What do you do after ending the war? How Gaza will be linked subsequently also to the West Bank and so on. And the truth is that we all know that a certain part of the Israeli government, that does not represent the Israeli people by and large, but a certain part of the Israeli government is in favor of getting rid of all the Palestinians in Gaza, resettling Gaza, and then getting rid of all the Palestinians in the West Bank and integrating all of these territories into the state of Israel. So I think that determines to a large degree also the direction of the Israeli government with regard to the steps taken now in Gaza. Fact is that, and we all know it, that President Trump had to force Netanyahu to move forward and also forced him to apologize to the Qatari government for the Israeli attack on Qatar. And then he had to force him to accept the 20 points that he proposed. I think that the 20 points are a very significant achievement that has to be respected for the efforts made by the American president and the American administration. But this is the beginning of an attempt to stabilize Gaza. This is not yet a basis for a comprehensive effort towards a dialogue between Israel and Palestinian Authority towards peace. So the lack of, at the present time, of any particular requirement for a step forward gives the Israeli government presently the space needed in order to escape of any major a relation to what should be done in Gaza afterwards and how it will be linked into the West Bank.
Yeah, I think you both agree on the fact that the interlocutor on the Palestinian side should be the Palestinian Authority, though, and you are among the proponents of a thorough reform, because right now they lack legitimacy, they lack power. What would that have
whose
to...
fault is this? Whose fault was this?
Can you tell me?
The fact that there was no elections and nevertheless the support of many Western powers did not waver, it gives you something, it tells you something about, how fishy the situation was. Anyway, allow me to say that the Israeli government opposes any role for Palestinian Authority for the wrong reasons. We all know that this government, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu's government, supported the presence of Hamas as a competing second center of command or center of authority. That's compete with the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah and probably contradict with it. Now, the situation requires certain changes in this strategy, requires getting rid of Hamas, which I fully support. So, as an alternative, you need to oppose any role of the Palestinian Authority and maybe you try to get rid of it. So again, I think this is the wrong reasons for this kind of position, although with other reasons we might agree.
What would those be?
But those be, for instance, lack of democracy, that we need certain actions, we need elections that are regular elections, that are not seasonal elections, and they should be mandatory. And we need changes in the Palestinian Authority. We need some steps to fight corruption, for instance, other steps as well. I mean, these are things that are universally accepted, but unfortunately, nobody is talking about them. Everybody is talking about the wrong reasons. Why we don't want the Palestinian Authority? Because the Palestinian Authority might cause some problems with regard to the security situation in Gaza, which is not true, by the way, which is not true. Even this is not true, but this is not the right reason for why we need to have different situation.
Let's talk about Hamas, because they do pose a significant security risk for Gaza and for Israel. Where do you see the role of Hamas going forward? Because we talk about disarmament, we talk about them not playing a role, but there is a significant process between here and there, isn't there?
Well, number one, let's define the problem. Hamas, after 2 years of fighting in Gaza, is not what Hamas was 2 years ago. The Hamas today is not an imminent danger to the security or the survival of the state of Israel.
But it doesn't mean that the fact that they are not currently, that they cannot get there again with the support of foreign
supporters. After the elimination of all of the leaders, after the killing of tens of thousands of Palestinians that were associated with Hamas, there were more killed which were not, which is regrettable. But there were thousands of Palestinians that were part of Hamas and they were eliminated. All the rockets, all the command position, all of this was destroyed. So this is Hamas, which is entirely different, number one. Number two, the objective which we all share is that Hamas will never be allowed to return back into any dominant position, not politically, not administratively in terms of running the daily affairs of the millions that live in Gaza, and not security-wise. That has to be taken care of by the interim security force that will be part of Gaza as an implementation of the 20 points of President Trump, which is now being in the process of implementation. So there will be difficulties with Hamas and there will be difficulties with other terrorist organizations, maybe the Islamic Jihad, but the threat, the extent of their option and the potential is not such that threatens the possible change in the balance in Gaza and the possible process of negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians.
Is that how you view it as well?
Let me be more specific about that. But of course, yes, I view it in the same direction. But to be more specific, now, to argue that Hamas will not be part of the governance of Gaza is not good enough in my mind.
All right.
We need more than that. We need a clear position whereby Hamas understands that it's a new era, a new situation, and that it needed to change. And it needs to commit to ending its control over Gaza in all its forms, political, administrative, as well as security. And security means at least to put the heavy weapons under the control of the new Palestinian body, official body, in addition, of course, to tackling the issue of preventing rearming again and tackling the issue of tunnels and things like that. In return, I have to say that the door should remain open for Hamas to have structural transformation into a political party. Okay. Not with the same name Hamas, but in a different name, and under Israeli law, which means that there will be some stipulation in this regard. This way, I think we can reach the necessary political agreement that would allow the process to proceed. Because frankly, speaking about enforcement, international force, I think is not going to work, because I don't see countries giving soldiers to go to Gaza to disarm Hamas or anything else. It should be a stabilization force that helps the Palestinian security force, but to implement or to help implement what was agreed upon earlier through political means.
Looking further down the road, you have drafted a proposal for a two-state solution. Now, looking at the scenario we're facing, the PA is not in a position to speak in a truly authoritative voice. The Israeli government doesn't want to see a two-state solution. There is significant momentum right now, but looking at the political surroundings that would be needed for this process to really be fruitful, how concerned are you, Mr. Al-Kidwa, that we might lose the momentum that we have right now?
We might lose the momentum, but I hope we are not going to lose the momentum through the good offices of many parties that are interested in creating peaceful situation in the Middle East and reaching the peaceful solution in the form of two states. I hope that it's doable. I think it's doable. And by the way, we both agree that there is no other alternative to the two-state solution. This is the only viable solution that we have to put as our goal at the end. After solving the situation in Gaza, we need to proceed to make it possible that this is going to be the end result of the whole process.
We have to wrap up, but I have one last question for you, Mr. Olmert. This is, of course, a process that takes place on a political level, but we're looking at the Palestinian people and the Israeli people who are scarred by decades of war. How can reconciliation on that level really take place and lead to peaceful coexistence?
What you really say, in other words, you two dumb guys, you know, what you propose is the worst possible solution at a time when the Palestinians are not ready, the Israeli government is not ready, the Palestinian public opinion seems to be very much opposed, the Israeli public opinion is still under the trauma of the 7th of October. Listen, had it been simple and popular and acceptable, and as a matter of fact, they wouldn't have needed Nasser, Kidwa and Ehud Olmert to propose it. The reason why we propose it is because we feel that this is the time when we have to shake both sides to understand that without a political solution, we are doomed to repeat what we have been through, of war, of fights, of bloodshed, of destruction, of losses of lives, of losses of hopes. And what we try to do is to say to the two sides, there is hope. It's around the corner. It requires courage, determination, vision, and leadership. Let's move forward in order to grasp this opportunity before we lose it again for the terrible things that we've been through. And we are believers. We are not naive. We are experienced people. We think that it can be done, and we are prepared to fight for it.
Mr. Olmert, Mr. Al-Kidwa, such a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much. All the best to you.
Thank you.